Hello and welcome, fellow traders and aspiring coders. I'm JBlanked, your instructor for this exciting course on coding in MQL4. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. Now, before we dive into the world of MQL4, I want to take a moment to share a bit about myself and my journey. While I may have started coding in these languages just over 2 years ago, my passion for algorithmic trading goes back nearly 5 years. Throughout this time, I've immersed myself in the world of coding, honing my skills and exploring the intricacies of algorithmic trading. But that's not all. I've also been teaching coding and providing Forex news analysis for the past 1.5 years. In fact, teaching has always been a significant part of my life. For almost 11 years, I've been guiding individuals like you, helping them unlock their potential in the world of music. Yes, in addition to being a coding enthusiast, I'm a full-time music producer. And I must say, it's been a crazy, crazy journey. In 2021, I had the incredible opportunity to sign a record deal with Universal Music, a milestone that still feels surreal to me. But why am I telling you all this? Well, because my diverse background and experiences have led me to where I am today, sharing my knowledge with you. As an active Forex news analysis trader, I know the importance of staying ahead in the market, and coding has been an invaluable tool in achieving that. Over the years, I've completed over 1,000 projects in various programming languages, including MQL4, MQL5, Python, HTML, and Django. The extensive hands-on experience has given me a deep understanding of coding principles and their application in algorithmic trading. In addition to my projects, I've also dedicated my spare time to helping others on platforms like Forex Factory, assisting fellow traders and sharing my insights. I've even created free tutorials covering topics ranging from coding to Forex and music. Now, as you embark on this coding journey with me, I want you to know that I am here to guide and support you every step of the way. Together, we'll unravel the intricacies of MQL4 and unlock its potential for creating powerful trading algorithms. Whether you're a seasonal trader or just starting out, this course is designed to equip you with the skills and knowledge you need to excel in the world of coding and algorithmic trading. So, get ready for an incredible adventure ahead. Thank you for choosing this course, and I'm excited to be your mentor on this journey. Let's dive in and unlock the limitless possibilities that coding in MQL4 has to offer. I'll see you in the next lesson. Hey, welcome back to the MQL4 course. Now we're going to go over what we will learn in this course. So first we're going to go over what actually is MQL4. We're going to go over file types. We're going to go over what are data types and enums. We're going to go over writing statements and variables. We're going to go over conditional statements. We're also going to go over functions and common functions within MQL. And then we're going to go over technical indicators like the RSI and the moving average. We're going to go over how you can use those within your code to do things like trading off of them and to send alerts. And then we're also going to go over making your own functions. We're going to go over trade functions, and those are the functions that we use to actually make our code or our scripts trade for us automatically. And then we're going to lastly go over how to make the moving average cross using all of the information and education that we have gone over. Hey, how's it going? Now we're going over what is needed in this course. Luckily, the great thing about coding is all you need is a computer, and you need to download MetaTrader 4. You can find that by going to MetaTrader4.com, or you can just go and type in on Google, download MetaTrader 4, and you should see here this first link pops up. Now, you can download the one, if you're already using a broker, you can download the one from your broker. But the one that we're going to be using in this course comes directly from their website here. That's for MetaTrader 5. This is for MetaTrader 4. So if you're on Mac, you download the Mac version. If you're on Windows, you download the Windows version. If you're on Linux, you download the Linux version. From there, you're going to open up MetaTrader 4 here. This is the more direct way to get to the meta editor. You'll notice that on the Mac version, sometimes there's not a direct application. But once you open up MetaTrader 4, then we will go into the meta editor, which is right in this nav bar here. In the top left of your screen, you should see a button that says New Order. We're going to go to the right of that. If you hover over it, it says MetaQuotes Language Editor. That's how we go and we can edit the code, we can test our code, and we can create code to be used in MetaTrader. Hey, now we're going over what actually is MQL4. Now, they have a long definition here, but basically MQL4 is the coding language for MetaTrader 4. So to access all of the different indicators and the common things that are used in MetaTrader 4, like trading and all of the different custom indicators that you may have seen before, all of that is created with MQL4. Their definition is MQL4 is an object-oriented high-level programming language intended for writing automated trading strategy, custom technical indicators for the analysis of various financial markets. So again, in short, this is a coding language that is similar to C++, which is another popular coding language, but it is specialized for trading and for writing automated trading strategies to be used on MetaTrader 4 and with MetaTrader 4. Hey, welcome back. Now we're going over the different file types in MQL4. Open up MetaTrader again. We're going to go over to the nav bar again. This time we're going to click on the meta editor button. This will pull up the editor. And again, that is what we are using to write our code for MQL4, which is again the programming language for MetaTrader 4. So you go and you click this symbol here and it will open up the meta editor as you see here. Now to view the different file types and to create a new file, you go to File and you go and hit New, or you can go over here and just hit New, and the nav bar here you hit New. And now you have all of the different file types that you can create here. They have expert advisors, a custom indicator, script, library, include, a new class, a Python script, and a database. Now, you don't have to worry about memorizing these. We are really only going to use 3 of these, and just understand that about 3 or 4 of these are the most common, with the least common being a Python script, a database, and a new class. The most common and the one that we're going to do at the end of this course is an expert advisor, which creates a .mq4 file. Same thing for the custom indicator, which we go over in the advanced course. That also uses a .mq4 file, and same thing for the script. But in this course, we will also go over include files, which uses a .mqh file. So the source code versions of almost all of the MetaTrader 4 source code is .mq4, except for the include file, which is .mqh. So the source code version is .mq4. And then whenever we go and create our scripts and things later, We'll go ahead next. Whenever we give it a name, we'll hit name and we'll put .mq4 so that we can tell the system that we are creating a MetaTrader 4 file. And then the program version or the bot version of the file is called .ex4. So .mq4 is the source code. .ex4 is the bot version, the program version, the script itself. Hey, welcome back and congrats for getting to chapter 2 of our MQL4 course. Now we're going to go over data types. Data types basically refer to the type of value a variable has. We're going to get into variables right after this lesson. But in other words, they are categories. The main ones that we are going to talk about are, let's start actually at the top. First one we're going to talk about is int, which stands for an integer. So let's go to here. So integers. And integers are whole numbers. 0, 1, 4. Zoom in some more. I can't. -5, 1,000, -671, etc. Those are of this data type called int, and int are just integers, and they're just whole numbers. Okay. The next data type that we're going to talk about is Boolean, and Boolean is just true or false. Simply put, true or false. Okay, bool, and it's only true or false. Either turns red, true or false. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about strings, and strings are pretty simple. Strings are just Strings are just words and letters, like here, strings. And the important thing is that in this language, we need to put quotation marks around them. You see that we have a dark green color, so you know that you use the quotes right and that this value is a string. So strings can be anything that are letters and that are within the quotation mark. So even if you put a quote 1 here, this would still be a string because it is within the quotation mark here. So 1, 1, all these are strings. Okay, next we're going to go over doubles. Now, in the other popular languages, most people refer to floating point numbers as a float, but in MQL4 we refer to it as a double. And doubles and floats, all they are is just decimal numbers, like 0.1, -0.56, 889.087654321, -0.0. All those are decimals, and that is of the data type double. Before we continue, don't worry about memorizing all these or even writing these down. As we start to get into variables and started to write actual code statements, you will see why these data types are used more often, and you won't even need to memorize these. As you start coding, your brain will just remember them. You'll start to build muscle memory, okay? So it's double. The next thing we're going to talk about is color. Data type color. And for color, you can just type in the words like this: blue, red, yellow. But more specifically, it's always better just to use _CLR and then type in the color. Color yellow, color cyan, color beige. Boom. Okay. And the last tool we're going to talk about is date time, and this is for writing time and for writing dates. There are several ways that you can write this. Let's click on date time here. This is in the MQL4 documentation. Here they tell you exactly how you can use the different dates. So for an example here, they give you one where you put the year first, and then you put the month, and then you put the date. Same thing here, the year first, the month, and the date. And then right here, you see we have the date first, and then the month, and then the year. And then right here we have the date, the month, the day, and the year. And you can also see that you can also put just the time. And you see here they only use the time. This is the hour, the minutes, and the seconds. So an example here, if we wanted to write today's date in the best format we could use, I always like to put the year first, and then put the month first, and then put the day first. And then put the day last. So we have the year first, and then the month next, and then we have the date last. And the last one is enum, which are just special categories or special data types. You can eventually, we're going to learn how we can create our own special data types, our own special categories to group our items in. The reason why you would use that is so you don't have to keep writing things over and over again. You can just create a special data type, and then just by typing only a few letters of that type, then the whole word would appear. So I'll give you some examples here. MetaQuotes already has a few of their own, and we're going to use these to make our first expert advisor later on. Okay. The first one we're going to use is, if you see here, as soon as I typed in all caps enum, it pops up all of the ones that MetaQuotes already has available to us, a whole lot. Some of the most common ones are enum timeframes or timeframes. This is just a category for all of the available timeframes in MetaQuotes. The ones that we're going to use in our bot later is enum MA method, which does exactly like it says. It's just a category of the moving average methods. For example, the simple moving average, or the exponential, or the weighted. And then we're also going to use enum applied price. And that is like if you're using the RSI, or again, if you're using the moving average like we will later, then you will have to set the applied price, which most people apply it to the close prices or the open prices. So that's it as far as data types. Let's just do a quick review. Remember that a data type is like a special category, and it refers to the type of value a variable has. So an example of an int, which are integers, or just whole numbers like 0, 1, 4, -5, 1000. Examples of Boolean or bool are just true and false. Example of a string are like the word strings, but they need to be in the double quotes. Like here, my name, or even 1, and of course 1. Doubles or floats, they're just decimal pointed numbers, as we see here, even -0.0 or just 0.0. This is a double here, and this is a double. -0.56 is a double. And then next we talked about colors, which I said the preferred way to do it is to always use CLR and then the color that you want, lowercase CLR, and then the color that you want, color orange red. Cool. Next we talked about date time, and I talked about how there are several ways that you can write out the date, and you can even just write out the time that you want. And then lastly, we talked about enums, which are special data types. Like, you won't find these data types in other languages. They are special to MQL4, and these were created by MetaQuotes to be used in their code. Hey, welcome back. Now we're going over variables. We're going to go over what a variable is and how to use them to write a statement. So a variable is just a nickname for a specific place in memory. As we are writing statements, the computer is saving our variables and saving our nicknamed memory into certain locations. Again, you really don't have to worry about how all that works. All you need to understand is that a variable is just a nickname for a value in memory. So we're going to go over how to use data types and how to make our own variables to store information. So let me just give you an example here. Let's say we're talking about a community of people that has been around for 20 years, whatever. At this point, they have 30,000 members. Now we want to store their community list, or the amount of members, in a variable. We want to give it a nickname, and we want to store it so that we can use it later on in our code. Don't worry about that for now, but pretty much we're just going to take the fact that, okay, they have 30,000 members in their community, and the community is called Tree Life. Okay, so because we're talking about members, because we're talking about people, this is going to be a whole number. So remember from our lesson of data types, whenever we're dealing with whole numbers, we're going to use int. Okay, so whenever we are writing a statement, and whenever we are about to create a variable, we have to first tell the program, the computer, what data type it is. So because we're talking about a community again that has almost 30,000 members, we're going to use a whole number, because obviously people can't be divided in parts, right? So we're using an int, which stands for integer, which again is like 0, -1, or our case 30,000, 6, negative that number. So again, whenever we're writing a statement, we start out with the data type, then we give it a nickname, and then lastly, we're going to assign it a value. So again, we start with int. We're talking about a community. This community is called Tree Life. So we can do it like Tree Life. So this is the variable here. The variable is called Tree Life. Again, this is just a nickname for a value that we're going to store in memory. So there are a few ways that you can write variables. Obviously, you can't write them in all caps. You can write them in all lowercase. But one thing that you can't do is have spaces in between here. Now, if we were to try to assign this value here, we would have an error here because we cannot have a space in a variable. So we can use an underscore. Yeah, we can use an underscore. I don't think we can use a dash, if I'm not mistaken. But underscore like this. You can also do capital like I did at first. Most of the time you'll see me use lowercase and then use underscore in between them like that. Okay, so again, first we started out with the data type. We know we're dealing with integers because we're dealing with whole numbers. We're dealing with members in a community. We're dealing with a group of people. So we know we're dealing with whole numbers, so we use an int. Next, we gave it a nickname. We're talking about this Tree Life here, members. Now we're going to assign it a value. Now we're going to say that this nickname called Tree Life members, we're going to make it equal to, so we use the equal sign. We'll make this equal to 30,000 members. So let's start from the beginning. We're almost at the end. Let's start from the beginning. We first started with a data type. We're writing a statement about a community that has 30,000 members, and they're called Tree Life. The community is called Tree Life. The story was they've been here for about 10 years. They have about 30,000 members. So whenever we are writing the statement to store in our computer memory, we first have to write what data type it is. What type of data do we want to store? Do we want to save? And we said because we're talking about members and we know that it's a whole number, we're using an integer or an int. Next, we gave it a nickname. And for this nickname, we call it tree life members. And then next, we assigned this value, we assigned this variable called tree life members to 30,000 because that is how many members are in this in this community called tree life. So now we were telling the computer to save a spot in memory for us called tree life members and save the value for 30,000. So we're saying now that again this tree life community has 30,000 members. And the last thing we need to do in MQL is we have to put a semicolon at the end. And there we go. You're writing your first statement here. And now we can use this within our code. So I'm going to give you two more examples of writing statements. And then we're going to go over operations and expressions. Okay? So I'm going to give you another example. Let's use a string. Now we're going to talk about the name of a company. Actually, we will talk about the CEO of Tree Life, okay? So if we wanted to write the CEO of Tree Life, we know that his name or her name is a string. So we have to first start out our statement by saying or telling the computer what data type it is. So we start by saying string, then we give it a nickname. For this, we'll just type in here tree. We'll do tree life CEO. We can do it just like that, exactly the same. And now we have to assign it a value, so we use equal. And then because we're using a string, we must use quotation marks, and we'll put his name as Mark. And at the end, we have a semicolon. Okay, let me give you one more example here. Let's use a color. Now we want to say what color is their logo, the Tree Life logo. So we're again, because we're using the color, we want to know the color of the logo, we're going to use the data type color. Now we're going to give it a nickname, which we'll call Tree Life color. And we're going to assign the value to a color. We'll say the color is blue. And with a semicolon. So these three are three different statements that we wrote out that we can now use anywhere within our code. Excuse me. So now let's just go over basic operations and expressions. So just like in math, you can add, you can subtract, you can divide, you can use all of the same expressions that you could in math in our code. So just as a quick example, we have addition. 1 plus 1, of course, equals 2, right? We can do 1 minus 1, which would equal 0. We could do 1 divided by 1, which equals 1. We can do 1 times 1, which equals 1. One new one that they have is 1, and then it looks like a percent sign, but it stands for residue of division. So 1, and then the residue of division of 1 equals 0. So what this symbol means is we are going to divide like normal, and then if there are any numbers left over, that is what the value or the return value of this expression is. So let me give you some examples here. If we do 8 and 3, so what you would do is you would see how many times does 3 go into 8, and that would be 2. And then you say, well, after we do that, how many numbers are left over? So 3 times 2 is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. So the correct answer for this is 2, right? But if we were to change this to 9 residue of division in 3, this is going to equal 0 because 3 goes into 9 evenly. So there's nothing left over. There's no remainder left over. Let's see if we did 10 residue of division 3. This gives us 1 left over because 3 can go into 10 3 times evenly, and there is 1 left over. So we can also do all of these with statements here. Let's see, we'll make a new statement, which is going to be int again. And we'll just call this new tree life members, and we'll assign this to 10. So there are 10 new tree life members here. So just like how we did here, we can add and subtract all this. See, now as soon as I start typing in tr, now I can access these variables here. So tree life members minus new tree life members, and then we can make this equal to, or here, let's do it this way. We'll say, let's make a new statement using an integer, and we're going to call this old members. And we're going to say that the old members is equal to the total of members, 30,000, minus the new members, which are 10. So we have 10 new members. So the old members would be the total amount of members subtracted by the new members here. And we set this value to old members. And now we can also use this within our code. So let's do a quick recap. Today we talked about variables. We talked about how we can write our own statements using variables, using assignment operators like this equal sign, and using data types. In our first example, we talked about a community that's been here for 10 years called Tree Life, and they have 30,000 members. So we went and started by using an int because we know that 30,000 members is a whole number because members cannot be cut in half. I mean, they can, but that's not how we would count them. So we set this variable called tree life members. We set the value to that equal to the amount of members that we had stated, which is 30,000. So anytime we use this in our code, this is already saved or set to 30,000. So this tree life members now represents the amount of members in that community, which was 30,000. Then we made a new coding statement, or a new variable. We assigned a new variable called new tree life members. We assigned it to the value of 10 because we're saying there are 10 new members in this community of 30,000. Next, we set a string variable called tree life CEO, and then we're just saying that the tree life CEO, his name is Mark. Next, we set the tree life color, where this is the color of their logo. Here we'll say tree life logo color. This is the color of their logo, and we set the color of the logo to blue. And then here we use one of the expressions that we have talked about to create a new variable called old members. We took the total amount of members and we subtracted by the total amount of new members. And that gave us the amount of old members or original members. And then lastly, we talked about, again, expressions. And just like in math, we have addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and then we also talked about residue of division, which is as after we divide, how much is left over, and that's what the value is. So with here, 8, 8, and then the residue of division of 3. This is going to give us 2 left over because 3 goes into 8 evenly twice. You're going to do 3 and you add 3, you have 6. And then there are 2 left over, so this is going to equal to 2. 3 goes into 9 evenly, so there are no left over. And then 3 goes into 10 evenly only 3 times, but there is 1 left over. So then we have 1. So to do this, you could just do like 3 times 3 equals 9, and then 10 minus 9 equals 1. 3 goes into 9 evenly. 3 times 3 is 9, so there is none left over. And then here, 3 goes into 8 2 times. 3 times 6 is 2. 8 minus 6 equals 2. Hey, welcome back. Now we're going to go over the difference between input variables and global variables, along with some more operations. So let's open up the meta editor again. Again, you can get here by going to MT4 and then click on the editor symbol. Then we're going to go over to click new. We're going to use the expert advisor. Next, you're going to type in the name and type in tutorial. And then you type in the extension .mq4 and then hit next. I already have a file there, so let's hit yes, but hit next, finish all the way here, and then boom, here you go. So we're going to take our lesson and understanding about variables, and then we're going to apply them to input variables and global variables. Okay, so what we actually learned were just variables in general, but because I didn't use them inside of a function, they can be used anywhere within the code, including in other functions. So first, let's just go over input variables, then we'll go over global variables, and then again we'll end with more operations, okay? But before we continue, I know the last video, the editor that I was in MT5. And you have noticed that they look somewhat similar, but the MT5 version just looks a little bit more slicker. Do understand that all of the codes, whether if I'm in MT5 or in the MT4 version of the editor, they still do the exact same thing here. They both compile the same way. The code is still the same way. You see here we have the on init, the on d init, and the on tick, and actually, I think this one I got rid of it, but this one I'm just using the on tick. But they are the exact same editor. Just understand that if you're working in the MetaTrader 5 one, it's going to be a .mq5 file. If you're working in the .mq4 file, which is what this lesson is on, then you will work in MQ4. But I just don't want you to get confused because you see, it just looks a little bit brighter and more neater, but understand that it is the exact same thing here. I just don't like this doesn't sit well on my eyes that the best. But still, we're gonna go with input variables. So we talked about variables before, how you just start with the data type, then you give it a nickname. Let's use our example from before. We're talking about tree life members, and we set it equal to, so we're setting the value to how many members. We set it to 30,000, and with the semicolon. This is a statement again that's saying that there are 30,000 members in tree life. We're saving a nickname called tree life members in our code here. Now, in order to turn this into an input variable, all we have to do is write input before it in space, and now you see input is blue, int is blue, and then tree life members is the same. So now what we're doing now is this variable that we have called tree life members is still set to 30,000, but you see now it turned red. now the user can go and change this number. So we're going to compile this. We'll go to MT4. We're in MT4. We're going to go over to, let's see, where's the bot called? Tutorial here. And you'll notice that now we can go and we can edit the value here. See the variable, tree life members, and now we can edit the value to whatever number, and it will be saved and used for whatever calculation that we have used for in our code here. Before we continue, if you want to change the way that this is displayed, you notice that on this bot here, it shows the underscores and everything. It's not really that neat. You can use code comments, which you saw me do earlier with the double backslash. And then you can just type in, this is the code comment. So anything that you're typing in here won't be affected in the code. That's how they built these special words thing here. They use double slashes and just use the different keyboard characters to create a cool looking box. But for the inputs, we can tell the user, we can give the user a better name of this. If we compile this and go back to the bot, it'll show them code comments, which isn't that helpful. It doesn't tell them what it is. See code comments. Instead, we want to set this value for tree life members. Now we can use spaces because our code isn't being affected after we use the double slash. It's just a comment, just like here, just a comment. So we go and compile that. Go back to this. There you go. Tree life members set to 30,000. Again, now we can change this to whatever. And now this tree life members variable, this nickname, is forever going to be saved to this value. Cool. So that is called an input variable. It's just like our variables from before, but because we add inputs, now the user can go and change this. And that will, of course, affect how the code operates differently. This is especially useful whenever we are building our expert advisor. Let's say you want to give the user to be able to type in their magic number, or to type in the order comment, or to type in the stop loss, or their lot size. So we use inputs to give the user all the different variables that they need to change things in the bot. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we can use these within our code. We're going to get rid of input for now. Keep this on int. So now we're going to be able to, I'm going to show you how we can use the tree life members within our code. Oh, excuse me. Compile here. If you notice, now that I hit compile, if you go over to the bot, now there is no inputs tab because we don't have any inputs here. Right, so let's go back to here. But now we can go and we can use this within our code, and we can change the value. So let me first show you what happens if we put this within a function. So these are functions here. In our chapter 4, we go over functions, so don't worry about this too much. But the only thing I want you to understand is that if we write a variable within a function, we cannot use it within another function. So here you see I type in tree life members equals 10 here with the semicolon. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change this number. I'm trying to change the value of our tree life members to 10, but if I do that in another function, it doesn't work. It says undeclared. I have to set this again as an int. So now these two are two separate variables, two separate, they're stored in two separate memory locations. But if I wanted to access this value that I have stored, and I wanted to change this value within our code, I just have to not put it in a function. This is what's called a global variable. and I don't need to set the data type again. And now I can compile and I can change this code. So pretty much at first, outside of this function, this tree life members is set to 30,000. But now within the function, because I have this set globally or outside of any functions, then I can go and I can change it. And now the computer will store this value as 10 until I go and change it again. I can even use this tree life members here. So now it pops up. I can keep changing this as many times I want within the functions or anywhere within the code here. Even outside of a function, now I can just keep changing the value. Oh, I see, because I used it earlier. But now I can change the value. It wouldn't let me do it here because I'd have to go and set it up again. But so that is the definition of global variables. So again, a global variable is just a variable that is not stored inside of a function. And because we don't store it inside of a function, we can go and change the value of it inside of functions as we did here. We have no issues because now instead of tree life members being 30,000, we set it to 10. Then we set it to 20. Okay, now we're going to go over just basic expressions, just some more operations. So these just return true or false. We get rid of this. Okay, and we're just going to, again, work down here outside of the functions here, work down here. So adding on to the expressions from last time, we talked about like 1 plus 1. We talked about like 1 minus 1, 1 divided by 1. 1 times 1. We talked about 1 residue of division of 1, and so on and so on. But we also have logical operations that return true or false. For example, let's see we wanted to compare, let's use A and let's use B, A and B, okay? Obviously, like in math, we would set A and B to whatever values, but we're just going to use this as an example. So this is going to return, all of these are going to return true or false based off of the outcome. So for example, A less than B. So this will return true or false. This will return true if A is less than B. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So another example, like here, 10 less than 12, then this will return true. But if we did it like this, then of course this will return false. So this is if it's greater than. We also have something called is it's equal to. If it is equal to. So earlier we had just just one equal sign, and that is just setting the values. So this is saying now A is the value of B. So if A was 10 and B was 12, now A is equal to 12 and B is also equal to 12. But if we set the double, then now we're asking, like, is A equal to B? If so, then return true. If not, return false. They have the reverse. Is A not equal to B? In this case, it would be true because A is 10 and B is 12. And in this case, it would be true. And then they also have, I think we already went over greater than. They have greater than. They have less than or equal to. Is A less than or equal to B? And it is. 10 is less than 12, so this will return true. And then is A greater than or equal to B? This would return false because, of course, A is 10 and 12 is B, and that is more. B is more than A, so this would return false. Next thing we're going to go over are just some more. These are called characters of assignment operators. So in math, you had something called like A equals a plus, I'm sorry, a equals a plus 1, right? And what you would do in math is like you would subtract 1, or in this case, I guess, subtract a, and then add it to the other side. whatever. We're not going to be using it exactly like this, but in coding, the short way, or in MQL, the short way of doing that is the same thing as doing a plus plus. You can write it as a plus plus. And then, of course, a is semicolon. So this is saying to increment this value by 1. And then we could also do a plus equal, and then type in what we want to increment by. So a plus equals 2, that's the same thing as a equals a plus 2. You can also do this for minus. A minus equals 2, the same thing as saying a equals a minus 2. And so on and so forth. Of course, they have multiplication as well. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to talk about, this is the last thing in the chapter here. We're going to talk about logical operations. So, later on, whenever we were talking about if statements and you're trying to see if more than one things are true, or if you need to use more than one thing, then we're going to be using logical operations. So here is an example. Let's say we want to see if here let's use go. We're going A is equal to 12. Okay, B is equal to 14. C is equal to 7, and D is equal to 9. So we want to see if A is less than B and if C is less than D. If so, then we want to return true. So how we write this, of course, would be 12 is less than 14. That's how we write it at first. Of course, that would equal true or false. In this case, it would be true. And then, of course, we would write 7 less than 9. Or if we're using variables, is A less than B, and is C less than D. So if we were to combine them together in one statement, or to give one true or false, if we want to say and, like is A less than B and C is less than D, we do the same thing, A less than B. And now we use this logical operator called and. It is the double and symbol. It's like is A less than B and C is less than D. And this will return true if and only if A is less than B and C is less than D. So this will return true. But if we were to do this whole statement would return false, because A is less than B, but C is not greater than D. So this would return false. And then they also, if you didn't want to use and, you wanted to use or. Now this is saying, is A less than B, or if C is greater than D, then return true. So this will return true because A is already less than B. So even if this is false, as long as we have one of these true, then it will return true. But if they're both false, then it will return false. And again, if one of these are true, then it will return true. So that is it for this second chapter. Let's just do a quick review of what we did before. We first started out talking about different variables. We started out talking about input variables and how we can just take our regular statement, and if we add input in front, we can give this to the user to go and change the value so that we can use it later in our code. And the reason why we do that is, for an example, whenever we want to give the user the lot size to change, or the magic number, or the order comment. And then later we talked about global variables. We talked about that global variables are just variables that are declared or that are written outside of functions here. Like these are functions here which we haven't gone into yet. But as long as they are outside of these functions, then we can still use and change the value of those variables anywhere in our code. So instead of it only being set to 30,000, now it's set to 10. Or and then same thing here. Now instead of it being set to 10, now we can set it to that number, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, we talked about computer tripping. Lastly, we talked about more expressions. We talked about logical expressions. Logical operations like the and the or. Or uses two of the line breaks. Two of the, I think it's called line breaks. And then and uses two of the and symbol. So with the and, both of these have to be true in order to return true, like this. But both of these are true. And then we also have the or here, which means that only one of these have to be true in order for it to return true. Hey, welcome to chapter 3. We're now going to go over if statements, conditional statements. So they're pretty simple. They're like cause and effect. If this happens, then do this. If that happens, then do that. This is a very basic example. We start up by writing if. You see the types of blue. You write parentheses. Then you write the condition here. If 2 is less than 5. Then we write the curly brackets. You can write it here. Just start writing the curly brackets here. And then hit enter. And then most folks would enter again. And then you can write your code within here. And then do this. Or you can write it like I have it at the first example. Hit enter first. Then hit the curly bracket. And then hit enter twice. And then you can write the code within here. Then do this. If this, if this is true, then do this. Okay, and now they also have if else. So it's like if this is true, then do this. It's like otherwise. See, otherwise, the code comment. Otherwise, do that. Do that. Excuse me. So if 2 is less than 5, which it is, then it'll do this action. But if 2 wasn't less than 5, then it would do that. So for example, if 2 is greater than 5, then we would do this, but 2 is not greater than 5. So now it's always going to execute whatever we have here in this else block. So else do that. It's going to always do this because 2 is never greater than 5. So that's if. That is if else. Now we're going to go over else if. Let's get rid of this for now. Okay. Now we're saying if this is true, then do this. Else, if this is true, then do this. Say, all right, if 1 is not greater than 2, which is not, then go on to the next block right here, which is the else. So otherwise, if this is true, which it is, then it will do this. And then we can top it off with what I had, as we saw here, with the else. Otherwise do that. So from the top to the bottom, the computer will go and check if this is true, when this is not true. Then it'll go and check the second block. If this is true, well, in this case it is true, so it'll keep doing this. But if both of these were false, it first checks to see if this is true, this is false. Then it goes to check to see if this is true, this is false. So then it's always going to execute now everything that's here in this code brackets here. It's going to execute all of the code that is within here. Okay, so to sum it up again, if statements are conditional statements just like cause and effect. If this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do that. But we also talked about how we can set another condition so that if it's not true, then we would do it in another action. So we have this. If this is true, but 2 is not greater than 5, so we will else otherwise do another action. And then here we added the else if. So it's like first check if this is true. If this is not true, it's like else. If this is true, 1 also is not greater than 3. Else go for do this action here. Else do this action here. Made it to the end of the YouTube portion of this course. If you want to get the full course and take your coding to the next level, you come to my website, www.jblanked.com, and then you go to the coding courses section over here. And then here is the course, How to Code MQL4. Click on the link here and it will prompt you to buy. Once you have purchased the course, you will see all of the videos and topics and education that we have learned thus far. And then it will also include what we are going to learn next. So the last thing we learned were conditional statements, if statements, else if statements, and else statements. And the rest of the course, we go over functions and common functions like sending alerts and printing. And then we also go over technical indicators like the RSI and the moving average. We go over how to use those in your code. And then we also go over custom functions, how to make your own function. And then we go over trade functions. And these are the functions that you need to actually make your bot place a trade or to make your script place a trade. And then lastly, we go over everything that we have learned thus far, and then including the technical indicators and the trade functions so that we can make your first expert advisor. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comments. I will leave the link, the direct link to this course in the description as well.